Hello, my name is Whelsko and we are going to take a look at how to win more games in Apex Legends. And in order to do that, we first have to get to the basics. What is the actual condition to win? Well, one member of one team needs to be the last man standing. Not two, not three, doesn't matter how much. One guy, one team. If he's the last one to survive, he will win the game. And you might say, everybody knows that, it's simple. It is. But when you really keep that in mind, you don't always go for the fight. You sometimes think, how can I do this differently? For example, if you are a lifeline and you are up against a squad of 3 enemies at the end, they don't really know where you are, it might be best to just hide in a corner, and hopefully combining your drone with your medkits will get you more healing done than they would on their own. Now, the biggest strategy one can employ to win more games is positioning. I've noticed it while editing videos and seeing my replays back. The biggest loss is when we are not in a great position. That's the biggest cause of all our fights. That means pushing too hard, not expecting people to be there when they actually are. Let's say, for example, you think, you hit a guy super low. He went behind cover to heal. You decide to fully charge and chase him all the way down, and his 2 teammates are sitting next to him. So that's 3 guys. When you go around the corner, you have no cover. 3 guys are aiming at you from close range. There's basically no escape. And that's a bad position. That's how you lose. It's an unfair fight, and they can just finish you off. Your team can't really help, and if they just charge in as well, then it's just getting a whole lot messy. While on the other hand, if you just stay your ground in that situation and we stick to the cover and just throw a nade where the guy is healing, then we don't compromise our own position, but do compromise his. And it's this position that I would say even 80% of the fights are won by that. If you're worried that, you have a terrible aim and by the time you get a good aim we're months down the line, a good position will make it so much easier to fight. And you can't always get that. There's no guaranteed that you will 100% have the better position on top of instead of your enemy. One of the great examples that I can give you in this is Thunderdome. It's the place located on the southwest corner of the map. I've won a few games there, and I've noticed always that the last team is in the big box that's hanging on the roof. It's a great position to be in. And if you know what you're doing, there is little the enemy can do to force you out. You can just peek, shoot, heal up. And if they even dare to come close, you will most likely notice it with your team. And that's just one way of a great position to win in. Having a building compared to a non-building can be an advantage. What makes a great position? Well, it's one where there's a lot of cover, usually. It's where you can hide and peek easily. It's where you can get your healing done effectively. Verticality, usually in most games, as well as in this one, the high ground is most likely the best ground.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
Doesn't matter, 95% of situations this is true. The more you think about it, what is a better position? How can I keep this position? For example, let's say your enemy squad is locked away in the final circle in one building, and you decide to have your both 3 mates looking towards that building, completely having fire from all sides. Then there's little they can do. Then they are in a bad position. They are cornered, they are flanked, they are visible. They can't do much because each and everything they do, the enemy has an easier time to react. And that's because the whole team that's in the building is in a super bad position and the other enemy team is in a super good position. And it's these great positions that can cause you to have incredibly unfair fights in a good way. Unfair doesn't mean cheating in this case, it just means that you are in a better position to handle the other team. Whenever I say unfair fights, I of course mean fights that are heavily in your favor and heavily not in the favor of your enemies, whereby your enemies are gonna struggle super hard and you are gonna just roll over them because you have much more going on for you than they have. And that brings me to my next tip I want to give you: unfair fights. The simplest example is, of course, 1v3. If there is a team of 1 and there's a team of 3 fighting it out, it's super unfair for that one guy. If you have better ammo than, or more ammo, better said, and better guns, better armor, your ultimate abilities, you name it, all these things will allow you to have unfair fights. And the goal of any battle royale is to have as much unfair fights as possible, because you can build on success, but you usually can't build on failure. So the more successful unfair fights you take, the stronger you are becoming, which gives you more resources, and giving you more resources allows you to win more games. And it's the more you can force these unfair fights, the easier it will become. And sometimes that's not really possible, but let's say a team is split, and you know they're split, taking 2 of your squad to focus out 1 guy of theirs, that turns it into an unfair sub-fight, to put it like that. And if you can manage that, oh, this is gonna be easy. And it's a 2v3 all of a sudden, and then you can just continue and continue. A perfect example of having an unfair fight is, of course, the third party, being the third team that arrives while 2 are fighting, and swooping in all the kills is the ideal way to get them wins. If you can manage to only be the third party and only fight with groups that are already fighting, well, your chances of success increase immensely. If you are, for example, caught, you are fighting with another squad, and then another enemy squad comes into you, it might be better to run away and go around so the 2 enemy squads are fighting each other, and then you can swoop in back to get some kills. It's these unfair fights that will help you. If you can manage to only be a third party team the whole game, it's almost guaranteed to win. Simply because the only thing you're doing is attacking weaker players. Literally. Now, this isn't always possible, and in a battle royale can happen a lot of things, but you get the idea. And it's this unfair fighting that will allow you to get more out of it. And part of it, that is better position. Part of that is having better gear. Sometimes you get lucky and get better gear. Other times you have to fight for your gear. Sometimes you gotta be smart with what you have. And being smart about your ammo count, your nades, etc. can help you out immensely. Sometimes it's better, even if you are having more resources than the enemy team, to just stick to a little bit less resources, so the next fight you have even more. If you can stack grenades, that's wonderful. But having very little ammo for a devotion, for example, turns a deadly weapon into no weapon at all. So being smart and managing your resources, a little bit like The Sims or Tycoon series or whatever those games were back in the day, the better you can do that, the easier it will become for you to handle it. And it's these unfair fighting, incredibly good positioning, building upon the success of the previous fight, combine that with a team that is completely synchronized, that knows what they're doing, that are communicating effectively, you will blast away almost any opposition. For example, another unfair advantage you might have is that you are a full pre-made squad that has full voice communications, compared to the other squad that is consisting of 3 randoms playing together that don't have that voice communication. The ping system is great. You can do lots of cool things with it. You can communicate greatly with it. But a voice communication is still faster, is still better. And the in-game voice communication of Apex Legends is doable. But that's it. And if you can then play as a team and play to all strengths and get positioning, get unfair fights, build upon your success, you will notice getting the wins a lot more. So as a quick bonus tip, having a good start is half the work done. What do we mean with this? If you drop the very last out of the dropship and then go towards a big place with lots of loot that nobody's gonna be in, your early game is gonna be a lot more boring. That's for sure. You're just gonna have to talk to your buddies or whatever, but you will have a lot better foundation to start your adventure upon. You will have a lot more gear available to you to start a decent fight. While if you drop on the flying dropship with all the loot on top of it, together with 5 other squads, also I don't get why so many people drop it on there. In my opinion, the loot isn't that great, especially not for the risk it takes. But that's a bad way to start off your game, unless you instantly wipe everybody, but I mean absolutely everybody off that ship with no hit at all. Then you have to get off the ship, find another place to loot. Maybe there are already people there. And what you create is like, you barely make it to the next fight. You barely might win the next fight. And then you never have enough to build upon. Well, if you start with a late drop and go looting a lot early game, you can really get a lot of gear and start the fight well. Also, people will die a lot, so it makes it easier to get the number 1 spot. So I hope you sincerely learned something from this. I also hope that you're gonna apply this and hopefully get some more of those wins, and maybe it can even give you your first. But that being said, this was Whelsko signing off.